One. Welcome to the Grip Strip Podcast, episode 100, the NASCAR edition of the Grip Strip Podcast, in an ode to a bit from the Howard Stern Show and Ronnie the Limo Driver. My name is Philip Matthew, the host. My co-host is Josh Afine. What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Episode 100. We've hit the century mark in this show, and it started out 2020 during COVID. Both had nothing really to do during the nighttime, but now we've got this thing going on, and glad to be on it with you. 100 episodes, a great milestone, and there'll be many more to come in the following years, hopefully. And of course, Daytona 500. What a great way to begin episode 100, beginning of the NASCAR year, the Super Bowl of stock car racing, as they say. And of course, this one is a pretty big one with the debut of the next gen car and this new package that we have going into this season. NASCAR is basically taking the page and throwing it out, or the old formula, and now this car is basically more common with the sports car than the traditional formula for a stock car. And I'm very excited to watch and see all of it happen and unfold in front of us.
And with that, all the great detail you provided just there, Josh. And I mean, I'm excited too. I mean, I've been looking forward to this for weeks, knowing that this was going to be episode 100, was Speedweek's Daytona. I mean, you get fired up for it no matter what. We both do. NASCAR or whatever, but it's Daytona and it's the 500, and you get the initial race for 4 different series this weekend. And the fact that this started from fill in the blank and us talking about sim racing to the GSP coming along is huge, that we're at this point, and we're only going to keep going with this, and it's exciting. And one person who's been a great contributor, and we're hoping we'll be able to have more contributions from, a very knowledgeable person. He's our NASCAR insider. I'm going to go and say that right now. He's our NASCAR insider. He's going to be our Bob Pockrass for the GSP. His name is Joe Passero. He's a writer for Beyond the Flag and Fansided. Multiple time guest here on the GSP, NASCAR expert. And we're glad that you are here wearing the Dale Jr. Hellman's shirt. And we mentioned, and Josh was saying he's missing some shirts. I mean, that the point is, we're all NASCAR fans. If we're really fulfilling the whole Jeff Foxworthy thing, we need to have our favorite driver merch. I mean, I know drivers have changed over time. I got a new shipment of Chase Briscoe merchandise today because Mahindra Tractors is his new sponsor. They're an Indian company. I'm a brown guy, and Chase Briscoe is my favorite driver. So it fulfills multiple things on my end. We're actually going to do a little bit of live casting of the qualifying right now for the Daytona 500 as we speak. There's Daniel Suarez, and Nacho Libre gets into 4th in the Trackhouse 99. Ross Chastain, a 50.05, is on the pole. It'll be one of the slowest poles. I'm pretty sure the Hendrick cars will get under the 50-second mark. I mean, that's what they do. Jeffy will come out in his oversized vest because his belly is getting big, just like Fat Felons. And now he doesn't have to be in the booth and be on a soapbox to stand next to Clint Boyer. But the fact of the matter is, the Hendrick cars haven't run yet. Reddick ran, but Bald Spot didn't run. There's a few Fords that haven't run yet, big ones. Blaney. So I mean, there are people that can run, but right now, Ross Chastain, the Florida watermelon farming family, driving for Trackhouse now, not for Ganassi, driving the one car, is on the pole. Noah Gragson has made the race, unfortunately. If you're listening to this show, I more than likely you agree. But if you don't, I really don't care. He's a douche. But I went off on a tangent there. I'm sorry, Joe. It is qualifying and it is live. But thanks for coming on the GSP again. Hope we can do this more often. Your knowledge and your fandom, the energy we have, the three of us together is very good because we were talking for like 10, 15 minutes before we even started this, and we had great content going. So the executive producer, aka me, failed in not hitting record right when I got back here because we had some good stuff there. But thanks for coming on the GSP again for episode 100. So that's a big milestone for us.
Yeah, thank you. I actually didn't realize this was episode 100 until I hopped on the call. That's amazing. Congratulations to you guys. I still listen to you guys even when I'm not on the show. I find this very fun to come on. It's fun for me to get to share my expertise. And Josh, thank you for pointing out the Hellman's shirt pre-show. New addition to my NASCAR shirt collection. I mean, you got to be a fan to enjoy this, to work in the industry at any level. So I'm excited. Daytona is always exciting. And as you and Josh had pointed out, next gen car, this is really the first major test, I think, for it. We had the Clash, was kind of a fun event, had its kinks in the event, but really this is, to me, the first true test of where we're headed in 2022 with this next gen car. So thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. And I mean, I guess we start right there. Next gen car. We had one example. We had the Clash, albeit on a quarter-mile track in a football stadium, but this is Daytona. It's the biggest race of the year. It's the Super Bowl of stock car racing, and we're gonna talk about the Super Bowl of football that took place last week, and I turned off the TV after that game ended for many reasons. But we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about Formula One. We're going to get into a few other things here, but NASCAR is going to be Extreme E actually is going to be starting their season, and then of course Josh's Sim segment talking about the Daytona 500 for iRacing. But we got to talk about this car. I mean, we don't really know. We have testing. They did a little group practice testing, whatever. It's the Daytona 500, and what are we gonna see here? I mean, Joe, we had a conversation in before, just to make sure you could come on, and then we were talking in regards to what this week will be. The practices were kind of tame. There are going to be more practices after the duels tomorrow night. As we're doing this live. Oh, look at that. But you guys are on a delay. So the fact is I'm seeing this on the cable feed, and then the internet feed is on like the 7-second or 10-second delay. So it's interesting. So like I saw Harrison Burton go on the pole, and then that didn't last very long. And then I'm every time I see something, I'm going and putting out a clue. So then they're already ready to know. It's like we're doing like Morse code or some bullshit. But fact of the matter is, this car is a game changer. Josh talked about like the GT3 aspects of this car, V8 supercars aspects of this car. I mean, I don't know, like there are certain people that don't know what they're talking about and don't know what they're doing who had a lot to do with this. And then there are people that know what they're doing and know what's going on, that know what to do with this car. We really won't know what this is about until Vegas, but this is the biggest race of the year. You want to win the Daytona 500. As a Tony Stewart fan, he never won this race or the Indy 500. There are plenty of great drivers that have never won the Daytona 500. The defending champion of this race is Michael McDowell. Yes, the defending champion of this race, Michael McDowell. I don't remember what episode it was, but I'm pretty sure I went off on a tangent and lost my mind because he used up Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano in the process to win because Brad was setting up a pass to go and pass Logano. I mean, Logano would have wrecked him. So he would have turned himself across his nose the way that Carl Edwards did in 2009. But instead, Michael McDowell and his infinite wisdom. And speaking of that, he's on the TV right now. So that's some timing. I'm manifesting here. I'll tell you that Love's paint scheme actually looks good with the new number situation there. They did a good job on that. Can't help the driver, but the paint scheme's good. Fact of the matter is, though, it's wide open, I think, in a lot of ways. And Josh, I'll go to you first. With this car and with the opportunities that exist for this weekend, we'll focus on this weekend, but then we have kind of a wide view too. This race could be one of the more interesting 500s, could be one of the more boring 500s, kind of like the year 2000, where it was basically a single file fest. And I think they get to like 20. To me, it'll be 20 to go, and then they'll yard sale a portion of the field. And then California is going to look like it'll look like a chop shop in the infield at California Speedway, because they're all going to be trying to repair their cars. But I think it's exciting. The one thing I feel, this excitement and this energy towards what this car can be and what this car can bring to the table in regards to helping kind of bring the field together again before certain teams do what they're going to do and get ahead, which is gonna happen. What are your thoughts on that in regards to what we're gonna see this weekend, but in general as we move towards most of these races, which will be on the cookie cutters and road races too, where I think this car will probably be very, very good compared to where they were with the previous cars?
Well, I think for this weekend in particular, for Daytona, what I'm curious to see is how well does the car pack race compared to the previous generation. With the Gen 6, there's some variants. Some races, they had good pack racing, and then there were other races where they were very single file throughout. And, go back to 2013, the Daytona 500, the first one under the Gen 6 car, that wasn't a very exciting 500 until like the last 20 laps, when they finally figured out how to race side by side. They did have crashing in that one, and of course, that race had a lot of crashing and leading up to it. There was a lot of crashing, and contrast it to 2022, where we don't know how it's going to pack race. They could be single file. Maybe somebody might be brave enough to at least go double wide. We don't know that yet. I mean, we've seen testing, and they've been able to go double wide, and have some passes, but that's just testing. You never know what it's going to look like in a actual race situation until they're actually racing. And then you add in the fact that there's going to be a part shortage. Some teams didn't even bring in backup cars. There's still a lot of unknowns, and I mean, I know that some of the teams, like, they can not bring in a backup car, but they can still survive without that, because of course these cars have interchangeable parts. A lot of the body panels should be easy to change off. A lot of the internal parts you should be able to change pretty quickly, but it's still something we're not used to. So there's still a lot of unknowns that teams have to experience and go through with this weekend. So I think, the racing aspect of it, I'm very curious, how well are these cars going to suck up in the draft when they're behind each other, racing for position. Can you get a good run? Dale Jr. always talks about when he's broadcasting, take the runs that you can get. And I look at how these cars race. We haven't seen that yet. So are you going to be able to take those runs, or is it going to be really hard to generate a run? Is there going to be that gap between the tail and the nose in a pack of cars? Things like that. Does this car side drift as well as the last car? The last car, if you got two cars close together side by side, you could see a lot of the side draft that was very, very effective. But this car, we don't really know that yet. And there was some questions when they tested in November, and they said there was some difficulty with that. But it's all unknowns. And then I think for the speedway races, or the intermediate tracks, the short tracks, the road courses, I think intermediates, it's going to be hard to drive, but I still think there's going to be a little bit of pack racing. I mean, Atlanta turned into a super speedway because they went and reconfigured it. I think we might see pack racing there. Maybe we see pack racing at places like Michigan, some of the the newer repaved tracks like Pocono, Kansas. The ones that, I mean, it's been a decade now, but that's how it is now. And then I think the short tracks and the road courses probably going to be where you see, like you said, this car is going to do really well. I noticed in the Clash, I think it seems like these cars get really good bite off the corner, mid center, and then corner exit. It seems like they turn really well in that portion of the racetrack. So I think short track racing is going to be really good. And I think road course racing as well going to be really good. And you're going to see a lot of that effect come out because this car, of course, is very based on sports car design. And I mean, to be fair, it's actually more stock, I think, in my opinion, in the way the design is than the previous generation. I mean, because no car out here, I mean, you don't see a Camaro or a Mustang or a Camry that still has a solid rear axle. I mean, they've all moved on to independent rear suspension and all things like that. So they're actually stock, but of course we've thrown out the old stock car formula. Now we're on this new actual stock based on sports car design formula. So I think there's still a lot of things that we've yet to see that we're only going to find out tomorrow during the duels. Probably going to be a lot of single file to survive that one. And throughout the Daytona 500, and then as we go on throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, and as the defending Cup Series champion puts his car on the front row, Alex Bowman's streak of front row starts will actually end, which is something for now. I forgot about that, actually, that there is a second round. Daniel Hemrick just got knocked out of the top 10, which is a bummer. I'm a Hemrick guy. Elbows up. Young gun. He's a young gun. Elbows up. Hemrick. I still want a camera. I still want a camera in his car to prove that Ryan Blaney's impression of his buddy is true. They've never had an in-car, but the good thing is at Colleague Racing, so it will happen because they always have cameras in the Colleague Racing cars. It looks like none of the cars that went in the first part of qualifying will be in this top 10 shootout, but in the end, it's kind of not that shocking. Gumby's car is pretty slow. Oh, okay, whatever. With that, I mean, Joe, I'll pass it to you. As we were talking about Hendrick and we were talking about in regards to qualifying, but I mean, we had our conversation offline in regards to what we're going to see. I mean, they're going to be very tame, I think. A lot of the drivers are going to be very cautious up until the race itself, let alone, I think, for 3/4 of this race on Sunday. We may not, I mean, it is the 500. There's a lot of stupidity and stupid people are going to be there and they're going to go and do a lot of stuff. And then there are drivers that are not exactly the brightest bulbs in the box, but the part shortages, the aspects of trying to get to, California, get to Vegas, Atlanta, all that has to be on the minds of these teams. There's a bunch of these teams only have one car. It's like old school. I got one car. I got to figure out a way to make this thing get to Sunday. Because if they don't, they're screwed. I mean, I look at some of the guys that qualified tonight. What is it to them to go and actually, if you're on the front row for the Daytona 500, why aren't you going to go and start and park tomorrow? If you're an open car, I mean, I figure like Gagson, they're going to start and park tomorrow. There's no reason for them to run the duel because all they're going to do is destroy the race car, and then they're going to be in a problem. They're going to have a problem. I think it's interesting in that point, and when we look at what the Gen 6 races kind of devolved into, which was a lot of yard sailing of vehicles, it might lead to maybe a better race. I mean, I kind of have a feeling it'll be kind of like 13 in regards to how it was more single file, or it might be like 2000, but there's also the possibility that people actually decide to be responsible because they have to save this piece for next week. I don't know what you're thinking, Joe, but you can let us know in regards to that, and maybe some of the opportunities for some of these smaller efforts to maybe show out in a spot that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do even with the last car.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. This is an internal time of the clash, because before the clash, it was pretty well known that teams were running behind where they wanted to be. The idea was by the start of the season, at this point, most teams would have at least 4 cars per individually numbered car, meaning Hendrick Motorsports with 4 teams would have 16 race-ready vehicles. That's not the case. Some teams are lucky to have 3. Some teams have 2 and they're racing 1 this weekend. Some teams, this may be the only car that they have. So that's a really interesting aspect. The teams that have more race-ready cars, like Hendrick Motorsports, that also have more money, they can pay a little bit more to get those parts and pieces in to make more cars. They actually may be more inclined to be aggressive. However, on the same token, if you go and run the dual race really aggressive and you wreck, they're now getting and loading a new car from the shop, bringing it over to Daytona. And if you wreck that car in the Daytona 500, well, you're down to 1 car. So racing aggressively and racing conservatively, I'm at a point where I think I've exhausted my mind in thinking, okay, well, this driver in particular is going to race one way or not. I think the part shortage is going to play a hand. I think for the most part, you will see a very tame race in both duels. I know typically one duel has a few crashes.
We have a freeze here. I think Joe froze.
His duel.
Okay.
And I know that, am I running into some problems here with the internet? Can you guys hear me?
There was a little bit of a buffering issue there, and then there was like a freeze there while you were talking there for about 10 or 15 seconds.
Okay. Basically, just to go back on what I was saying, though, it's this debate is really just going to be, I think, partially on team orders. What does your owner really want you to do? Because the owner ultimately is going to be the best point. They know where the cars are at. They know how much race ready vehicles they have moving forward. And if you don't have a lot, I have to imagine you're probably going to be pretty conservative this weekend. Having the non-charter teams is a whole other story, because for some of them, this may be their only start of the year. Truthfully, I don't know that it's been announced if like Greg Biffle is racing anymore with NY Racing after this weekend. But if they're not, then why the hell save the car? Reckon in the 500 if you have to do it to win the race. And for some of those drivers, this race really does present a more unique opportunity in that everybody's going to be learning about the cars during the race, right? We're all having the practice, but if nobody's racing in line, racing in a pack until the race, everybody learns during the race. And with this car being brand new, not as many hours behind it as you would have had last year with everybody driving the Gen 6, that is just a whole nother wrench in it. So this race is basically going to go one of 2 ways. We're going to have a yard sale, and there's going to be probably only a few cars left at the end of the race. It's going to be a very tame finish, or drivers are really going to take care of their stuff, and it could be a really exciting finish with a lot of cars. Josh, I wanted actually to touch on some drafting points that you had brought up as well. So on the last time I was on this show, I had just come home from the Roval and looking at some of the Gen 7, the next gen car prototypes. One of the things I criticized on the show about the next gen car was how round the rear bumper is. I have to say, the bumper sustained some very hard hits at the Clash. And I was watching yesterday as some of the Fords were tandem drafting. I believe it was Brad as well as Busher were tandem drafting, and they seemed pretty okay for the most part. They seemed pretty stable. I don't know if that stability comes from the increased amount of mechanical grip or what. If maybe the bumper is less rounded than it looked, or maybe they went and fixed something. I don't know. But it still concerns me a little bit. The round bumper still concerns me. I think I've gotten partially over that concern for maybe some of the short tracks later this year after watching the Clash. But for this weekend in particular, where there is a lot of bumping, there is a lot of drafting, those Fords have a little bit more of a straight nose. So I'm not on edge about the Fords. I think they'll be okay if they want to give a harder bump to the car in front of them. But the Toyotas, they have these 2 points at the front of the nose, and then the nose kind of comes in and it rounds off. So you got like this weird, I don't know if anybody can see my hands, but it's got a real weird shape to it. That concerns me a little bit with the Toyotas, but for the most part, they're a little bit more on the flatter side. I think they probably will be okay. Camaros, I'm really concerned about the Camaros. Yes, I know they're fast in qualifying. I know Hendrick Motorsports, as we were speaking, went 1, 2, 3, 4 in the first round. I don't care about the speed right now, because when you're pushing somebody, if you push them too hard because you're going too fast and that bumper is real pointy, it's going to send you one way or the other. Better hope it's the way that the cars aren't. So that's really my concern. I was a little shocked actually when they did the unveil for these cars that it was so pointy, because in 2019 they made it a point that these noses were too pointy. And so for the 2020 season, they redesigned the entire nose so that where you would make bumper contact with another car was a little bit more rounded. So there's still plenty to learn about how these cars race, especially with the super speedway package. And then you'd make mention they're going to race this at Talladega, Daytona, and Atlanta. That's huge because Atlanta is another big unknown. So what they learned this weekend will certainly be used in the future. But you know what? It's the Daytona 500. So I would really hope that drivers recognize that this is a career-changing opportunity, literally career-changing. Look at Trevor Bayne. It's been 11 years since he won the Daytona 500, and he's hung in there. So I would hope that they recognize this opportunity and that they do go for it. However, with parts shortages, all these other crazy factors, I'm not sure we're going to see a very exciting race.
Yeah, that's the fear. I mean, it's what you said, Joe, in regards to the typical yard sale, and like Tony, when like 2012, it was 2012 when he had his famous post wreck interview where Arning had to keep a straight face, and he's like, I just wish I was involved in one more wreck. We tape him off solid and go and run for half the race, and then
they still have not reconfigured Talladega to a figure eight per Tony's request. So I don't know what the hold up on that is.
Well, they have the Talladega dirt track. I'm pretty sure when they have the brothers and sisters inbreeder race there, they probably make it a figure eight track. If it isn't that, they probably do that they probably do it in the infield, because when they have their parties, I'm sure they're interesting. But I guess we'll do a little update here. Jacques Villeneuve, the 1997 Formula One world champion, the 1995 Indy 500 and kart world PPG World Series champion, 50 years old. Makes me feel really old because I remember when he was a young guy. Jacques Villeneuve is in the Daytona 500 with the Henzemans team, along with Gagson, with the Beard Motorsports group. On speed, we'll see what they do in the duels on Thursday night, and if they race. I mean, if it's Jacques Villeneuve, it's great. I'm just glad it's Jacques Villeneuve, because anytime he's been in a stock car, it's been exciting. And he's one of the great. He was a great, talented driver when he was in his mode, and when he had a run there from like 95 through 97 or 93 to 97, where he's one of the best drivers in the world. Period. Of course, it's many years past that, but it's cool to see a new team, a team that's going to run limited races. Of course, right now they're involved in NASCAR Euro Series, so. He'll run limited races, but they're in the Daytona 500, so that's cool. The fan base, the LCD fan base, is happy that Gagson made it. The Beard Motorsports group, they had Brendan Gaughan run for them for many years, and they just decided to go with another Vegas kid, a Vegas guy. Look at Nacho Libre putting his hand out there, trying to cut the air there. But in regards to that, so those two cars are in. Those are the first two cars that are definitely in the Daytona 500. Most of the fields in the Daytona 500 is really about 4 spots. It's the front row and the last two cars that are open that'll make it into the field. There's Justin Marks. Where's Armando? Why don't we have an Armando sighting here? Armando did a performance during the Clash, and he's Mr. Worldwide, Mr. 305. When it's Florida, he should be there. He'll probably be there on Sunday. But right now there's 6 Chevys, 2 Toyotas, 2 Fords that made the top 10. At the end of the day, it'll be totally different outside of the front row come Sunday for the big race. But I mean, in general, I think I had an idea for what we would talk about in regards to what is one thing that you like, one surprise that you feel like is going to be in the playoff, and one person that isn't going to be driver that would be a surprise in and surprise out because of how these cars are and what things are going with this new deal. I mean, the first part of this season, when you get to lock in with a win, if you go and accumulate a lot of points, you could give yourself a cushion if you fall behind to even make it on points, because there isn't going to be 16 winners. There's way too many drivers in this playoff. That's one of my gripes I've had for many years with the way they do things. I think in the truck series, they went to 10. They probably should have just kept it at 8. The Xfinity series has 12. They should have 10. And then the Cup series should have 12. It's the playoffs. You should limit the amount of people who are actually in it. But the fact is, a lot of cars, you have 40 cars and nearly half the field's in the playoffs, at least in the first round. I mean, right now, we don't know. I mean, we've had one race, we've had a couple of practice sessions and a qualifying session in regards to what we're going to see here with this car. I mean, we don't know. I mean, we've got our ideas. Joe, I'll go with you. I mean, you're covering the series full time, and I guess based on some of your stuff, maybe some of the things you're working on, I'm sure that might be something you're going to have to work on eventually. They're probably going to ask you for some predictions. Who are you looking at as somebody who could be a surprise that we don't see or might have a rough year, and then maybe somebody on the opposite side that maybe last year was not a factor will be a factor here in 2022? Then I'll go to Josh and then I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah. So the one person I think that really stuck out like a sore thumb when it comes to people who I don't expect to have, at least comparatively speaking, as good of a year as they've had maybe last year, maybe past years as a whole, is Brad Keselowski. And I don't want to say it's for a lack of talent, because it's not what I believe. I think moving to a new team where he is now partial ownership, RFK Racing, moving to a new team and the team he's inheriting that he's joining has not performed in the past few years. Buescher's had a few good runs, did very well at Homestead last spring, but really for the most part, it's a very inconsistent team as far as when does it show up, when does it fall back. This next gen car could be an equalizer in that sense. I don't really expect it to, not quite yet at least. So Keselowski for sure, he's the one that comes to mind, and he even did struggle a little bit last year. I think there was only one win for him. So yeah, for sure, I think Keselowski on the struggling side, somebody I think could really do well this season. I've thought about it quite a bit, and this I don't know well in the sense of I think they're going to improve on the week to week just a little bit, but didn't make the playoffs last year and could see the playoffs this year. I'm going to go with Bubba Wallace. Now, I am not always on the Bubba hype train. I think for a long time he underperformed in good equipment, really with the exception of being in the trucks. However, I think that last year he had a few good runs towards the end of the season. Of course, capped that with a win at Talladega. And I remember back specifically to last year's Speed Weeks, ran very well in the Duel, ran very well in the Daytona 500. And I think we could definitely see him continue to move that direction, especially on these pack racing, very draft reliant races at Daytona and Talladega. And you want to throw in Atlanta in there because we anticipate it's going to be raced very similarly. That's, prior to the playoffs, that's, I believe, 5 opportunities he's got for a win. So he may be one of those drivers who has to win his way in. I'm not sure he's going to be a top 16 points, but I do think from the week to week, he's going to start to improve. And I think by the end of this season, we're really going to see what's up with 2311.
Yeah, those are 2 good calls there. I mean, Brad and Bubba, I mean, they kind of are close to the heart for me. I mean, I also look at Bubba, with Kurt Busch's expertise and knowledge of, I don't know, 800 years of being in this series, it's crazy to think that he's driven for every manufacturer, and that is surprising there. Okay. But the notion of Bubba being able to be competitive, which would make a good segment of the population very angry, which is part of the reason why I want to see it happen. But then also because for 2311 and Denny Hamlin, I don't like him as a driver, and quite frankly, I don't really like him as a person. But owner Denny Hamlin seems very interesting, and not only that, I think he's a good voice for the sport. And Kyle Busch is the same thing. I don't really like him, but Kyle Busch, the owner, in regards to NASCAR health and viability, has a big voice, and he's using it. I mean, hell, it's his older brother, and he's like, "Oh, is Kurt gonna go and drive races for you in the trucks?" It's like, "Well, bring money, dollar bills, And they, okay, like, that's funny. When you're telling your own brother, yeah, you have to bring cash to go. Wow, that was a lap. And to go and get in there and get in a truck. I mean, of course, Kyle's only going to run 5 races. They got some ARCA people and all that, but I'm pretty sure Kurt could get a run. I mean, Greg Biffle ran 1 or 2 truck races, and all of a sudden now he's driving a cup car again. Might backdoor his way into the 500 with a guy who got arrested for felonies. Like, that would be something. In regards to who do you look at, Josh? I guess for somebody that could surprise and somebody that could disappoint as we start the 2022 season in the Cup Series.
Well, I'll take a little bit of a different twist on who could surprise, and I'll kind of go by driver, but I'll start out with the team, and I'm going to go with Team Trackhouse as that team that kind of surprises. They had a few races early in 2021 season where they made a lot of gains. They had stage points that they were scoring. Daniel Suarez did pretty well at the dirt track race at Bristol. That was one of the races that he did really well at. And they are taking over Chip Ganassi Racing and inheriting Ross Chastain, who had a pretty solid year for his car as a rookie, and they've had a lot of speed so far in Daytona as well, so far this weekend or this week, and I think they might be a team that surprises people, and I'm going to go with Ross Chastain actually as that driver I can see from that team make it into the playoffs. I think he's got a lot of potential, and he's basically keeping the same team that he had from Chip Ganassi. I mean, just now under new ownership and change the number and everything. So I look at him, going off of last year, 3 top 5s, 8 top 10s. So I could see a driver like him kind of making kind of the same run that we saw from Tyler Reddick last year. I mean, didn't win for Reddick, but of course had a decent run, at least during the summer, and probably could have gone further into the playoffs. But unfortunately wasn't able to do that. And I see that kind of season for Ross Chastain this upcoming year. And then I think a driver that possibly won't do well that would be a shock to us is I'm going to go with Kurt Busch, actually. And I think just, new team once again. I mean, he's going to be in that leadership role with Bubba Wallace in 2311. But, it always can be tough with a new team, especially, with 2311. They're still trying to expand and they don't have they're starting to grow and have all that resources, but I still feel like maybe even with 2 cars, they're going to still have a little bit of growing pains, but I think his role is going to be more of just be kind of like that mentor, veteran for Bubba that he needs to be better. But I mean, I see him possibly not making the chase or making the playoffs this upcoming season. It's going to be a tough year, but for everybody, especially with this new car. But I think Kurt's been able to make the playoffs in different cars, but just for some reason, I just feel like, with the way things might turn out this season, he might end up on the outside looking in when it comes down to it at the end of August, when we start the playoffs for this series.
Yeah, it's something to we're going to find out for sure. We're not going to have this show out because the executive producer is slow with getting the broadcast out. But Young Money is on the pole, the defending Cup Series champion, the defending Knoxville Nationals winner, and I don't know any other the freaking what do you call the laundromat 500 winner or whatever the fuck any other race he wins, because every time he seems to jump in a car he wins. And he didn't win the Chili Bowl, thank God. The Meserol and went and took care of that, and other people did, but to go and save us from all the lamestream media going and telling us about how great Kyle Larson is with his redemption arc. But he will be on pole for the Daytona 500, and Hendrick will have the front row again. Alex Bowman 6 years in a row. Is it 5 or 6?
This will be number 5.
Oh, number 5. So 5 years in a row. Thank you, Joe. 5 years in a row. Alex Bowman, the one guy who's a human at Hendrick Motorsports, has a personality, even though Jeff Gordon wants them all to have personalities, even though none of them do, because Jeff Gordon has no personality and he's just getting fat. But the fact of the matter is, Hendrick Motorsports 1, 2, 3 are right now. Of course, that may not hold here by the time we get to Thursday evening. But surprisingly, Clyde didn't have a fast time. That was interesting to me. You'd think the most popular driver in the sport would go and get a pole at the Daytona 500, just like his dad used to do. But then his dad and his uncles and all built really fast race cars back in the day. So that's part of what led to those poles and those wins at Daytona and all those things. So the fact that Clyde hasn't won a second or third pole, I think he won a pole in his rookie year. And surprised he hasn't won one since. But yeah, Young Money will be on the pole for the Daytona 500. Can he go and get another major in this spot in a week where the rumors are he's going to run the Indianapolis 500? If he can go and win this race, I mean, what's stopping him to go and win the Indy 500? I mean, to be fair. We're going to talk about it on episode 101 in the IndyCar series in detail. It's going to be a great season coming up. They'll be at St. Petersburg next week for their opener. A lot of intriguing things. Jimmy Johnson will be running the full year, so I'm just connected to Hendrick Motorsports. 2-time Daytona 500 winner. We'll see if that thing passes inspection. Let's be fair. It's a Hendrick car. But 2 Hendrick cars on the front row. Young Money and Alex Bowman, 2 guys who are at the Chili Bowl, make the front row. Thursday's Duels will confirm the field. Jacques Villeneuve and Noah Gragson are also locked into the Daytona 500. So 2 spots are available with the open cars to see who will fill the field. And then the actual lineup from 3 to 40 will be set tomorrow in the Duels. So, I mean, Hendrick Motorsports getting another front row sweep and is not shocking. Rick Hendrick has basically made it his thing to want to go and win the pole for the 500 every year, which is nauseating, to be fair. But, you know, I think Alex Bowman wanted that pole. I could have dealt with that a lot better than the defending series champion getting the pole, but it's box office, so, you know, whatever. It is a show. NASCAR is more like WWE, so they want their defending series champion who canceled himself and then got a better ride, won 9-10 races and won a championship to go and be on the pole. 181 miles an hour. Whoopee. I mean, the point is there were the days where we're running 195, 200, 210. We're talking about 181 miles an hour as a pole speed. But whatever. It's kind of a bummer. It's Daytona. You'd wish they'd go faster. You got something, Joe?
Yeah, I do actually. So I have stored in my phone because last year I live tweeted Daytona 500 qualifying. And so I'm just, as you said, 181. It just dawned on me. Last year, Alex Bowman, when he won the pole for the Daytona 500, ran a 47.056 at 191 miles an hour. So, I mean, in a sense, I'm a little worried. That seems really slow. I know it's a new car. I know the package is very different to try and suit this new car and the racing that it will bring. But I'm actually going to go out on a limb here and say there is some positivity in that. You can only pick up so much speed in a draft pack, likely between 5 and 10 miles an hour. So if they're running 191 miles an hour in the race in a big pack, while that may be a little bit slower and a little more untraditional, I do think that maybe opens up the opportunity to get more aggressive. Every 10 miles an hour you go in a car faster, just think about your road car. Every time you pick up 10 miles an hour, it gets harder to control the car. It's the same way for these guys. So slowing it down 10 miles an hour in draft racing may not be the worst thing in the world if you want to have a product where people are both racing good and racing hard and racing clean. So maybe we will find that marriage. That'll be really interesting. I think too, with this car with the wider wheels, producing more mechanical grip, that could also factor into when you add in the slower speeds. Maybe this will be a very aggressive, pack-centric race. I'm hesitant still to believe that, but there are some things I guess that are coming out of positive that are coming out of a little bit slower speeds.
Yeah, this is the slowest qualifying speed on record at Daytona since 2011. The Coke Zero 400 pole speed was 182.065 miles an hour, and then Daytona 500 that year was 186.089 miles an hour. So yeah, slowest in 11 years. So make that of what you will, and I mean, you make a great point of being more stability in the draft at these speeds. But again, it's still pack racing. They're going to figure out a way to crash each other, and they'll figure out a way to make passing happen. But of course, when you talk about racing and stuff, the higher the speeds, it gets more interest. I feel like, and I mean, credit to Hendrick Motorsports for continuing to put out great race cars and great engines that win the 500 pole every year. But of course, it doesn't really reveal anything about how the racing is going to be, because how you qualify isn't how you're, or reflective really of how you're going to race. I mean, it can show which cars are the best in a draft, depending on the speed, but for the most part, this is basically an award mostly for the teams and the owners, rather than just the expertise and driving skill of manhandling a car like we've seen in before the restrictor plate era, with the old cars where you really had to drive these cars around the corners. I mean, you're not going to see something like Cale Yarborough flipping the car in turn 3 and 4. I mean, it's not going to happen unless a total failure happens with these cars. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully it races better than what we have with qualifying so far.
And I was looking back at like 2011, Mark Martin qualified at like 182 miles an hour for the 2011 was a Coke Zero 400. So I'm trying to figure out when was the last time they were this slow for the pole speed for the 500 though. Because it just kind of bothers me that they're going that slow, but it is what it is. I think we'll see what happens in the duels. 2 cars out of the four cars that have to drive their way in. 2 of them will make it for sure. Are the 2 MBM, so the car long cars, Timmy Hill, JJ Yaley. And then Greg Biffle for NY Racing and Kaz Gralla for Mayweather. And I mean, I like Kaz Gralla, but I don't like who he's driving for personally for many reasons. But 2 of those 4 will make the show, along with Shaq Villeneuve and Noah Gagson, to go and fill out the field for the Daytona 500. The full field will be set during Thursday's duels, whatever is going to come of those. And we get a Daniel Suarez interview. Look at that. I guess Jamie Little's deciding to go and do something a little different with her hair instead of having her stupid ponytail that somebody should take an air gun and rip off her head. But we'll get into the Daytona 500 more in detail, what takes place, probably go over how it was in the whole weekend in a little more next week, along with IndyCar preview. I want to go and move on. I mean, there's nothing to really go on this in regards to what's been going on because we haven't had any practice yet. The NASCAR Xfinity Series, like we talk, or I think I did. Well, you know what? I'm gonna go rewind back before we get into NASCAR Xfinity Series. I didn't give my thoughts on somebody who's gonna surprise and somebody who's gonna not be there in the playoff situation. I mean, thinking about last year in the playoffs, you have 16 teams that make the playoffs. Certain teams make it because they won one race. Certain teams are up there and they get there for whatever luck, whatever you want to talk about. I mean, I'm looking at the playoff situation. The surprise, the driver that I think will not make it based on, drivers that were up there in the top half of the points, in terms of like the top 20. Hey, Brad Keselowski's brought up. There's a couple other people there. I'm going to go and say Christopher Bell. And it's bad for JGR since it's bad and good for JGR. It's bad and for Toyota. It's bad because Christopher Bell and Toyota, they've invested so much money in him. But the problem is he's the fourth driver at JGR. There's also the aspect of Martin Truex Jr. They're going to try to force him out because he's too old. 20 car has been the redheaded stepchild since Tony Stewart got out of it, really. Matt Kenseth should have won the 2013 Cup Series championship, but things happen, and of course Jimmy got number 6. But to be fair, outside of that 1 year, the 20 car has not been a regular force the way it was when Tony drove it. And I wonder what Christopher Bell is going to bring to the table, albeit he has Adam Stevens, who's one of the best crew chiefs in the sport, but they didn't really do a whole hell of a lot last year. And you look at Kyle Busch, he has a new crew chief again, and they have sponsorship issues at the 18, and he's one of the best drivers there's ever been. It's crazy that I said that, considering I think Kyle Busch is a tool, but his talent is undeniable. It kind of goes the same way as Fish Lips in Formula One. He has great talent. He's an asshole. His dad's a prick. He's a prick. The team he drives for is full of them. But, it's the same kind of thing. But in terms of Christopher Bell, this is going to be a tough year. I wonder what he brings to the table. Can he come through? Can he go and break through? And he won a Truck Series championship, but can he go and take that next step? And go and say, I'm gonna be here. I know that Rev Gibbs is gonna put his grandson in a car, but he's not gonna replace me. He's gonna replace Martin Truex and send him to an early retirement. Like that, can he do that? That's something I'm curious about. Driver, I think that will come in. You can just put it out there. I will flag myself because I'm honest to a fault, but I wear my heart in my sleeve, and I'm out there, and I don't care. Chase Briscoe will be in the playoff, and he will win multiple races this year. Between the fact that, like Joe mentioned it, Stewart-Haas, I think we mentioned it offline, where Stewart-Haas might have sold out last year with how bad they were to go and be more prepared for this Gen 7 next gen vehicle. Briscoe is somebody who improves the more reps he has. The second year in the Xfinity, he won 9 races, and the only person that really truly stopped him outside of his own team and himself was Austin Cindric from winning a championship. He won Rookie of the Year basically by default, but this car and with his experience, because Ford had him drive vehicles that have this similar kind of setup. It sets up for him to be able to do well on road courses. It sets up for him to do well on, other tracks where it suits his driving style. And, he probably should have won Indy, but whatever happened there. He used up Denny Hamlin, which made me happy personally. But the fact of the matter is, I think he'll get his first win. He'll get multiple wins this year, and he'll be a factor this year in the Cup Series, which will be good because Kevin Harvick needs some backup in regards to Stewart Haas. Ford is in a lot of flux in regards to where they are and who are going to be the big names and not. Logano, of course, is the lead dog at Penske. Harvick is always going to be the lead dog at SHR until further notice. Brad has taken over the RFK effort there, but there has to be a youth movement, and there has to be guys that actually can drive because there are other people that are junior drivers in regards to the Ford program that more or less are there for PR or for because they have sponsorship and not because they actually can go and get the job done. So we will see what happens with that.
Phil, if you don't mind me chiming in here, I think a lot of the reasons that you just mentioned about Chase Briscoe and him being a threat, you want to talk about him. I think a lot of that you can pull over and put right on Austin Cindric as well. I mean, these two guys have been racing right around each other now for a few years, running Xfinity together, now going to be running Cup together. And Cindric did run a few races pretty
Truck
successfully.
Series team.
What's that?
Truck Series teammates, I think, as well.
Truck Series teammates too. So, they know each other. They're both at the Ford camp. Both of those drivers at one point in their career were sort of moved into sports car racing by Ford. And they said, hey, we want to help develop you. You're not quite there yet. Let's get you in some sports cars, bring you back over to NASCAR in a little bit. And it's a very interesting dynamic between those two because they're very similar in a lot of ways because of their experience. So I think Cindric, and I didn't want to say Cindric because he is with Team Penske. They have been doing pretty well for themselves the past few seasons, but I think he is a little bit of a sleeper. People have forgotten that he is part of this rookie battle this year. Because he has so much experience. Last year did so well for himself at the races that he ran in Cup. Had a great run in his duel and the Daytona 500, multiple road course starts in the Cup Series and did very well in all of those. I know he ended up breaking something. I want to say it was at Road America while he was running top 3 and leading laps in that race. So these two guys now, Austin Cindric as well as Chase Briscoe, you're now putting them into a car that is more like cars that they probably have more experience running than many other drivers in the rest of the field. I don't think that just makes them able to be successful. I think that actually makes them almost dangerous when it comes to certain types of racetracks, especially the road courses. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, they've really been putting together these road course races. I don't know that domination stays with them. So just to bounce off, it was a quick thought I had.
And it actually works out because it transitioned into something we were talking about before we got on air. This rookie battle. Cindric, who gets into one of the premier rides in this sport, the car that is the premier car at Penske Racing, or has been, the one that Rusty Wallace drove, the one that Kurt Busch took over after winning a Cup Series championship 2 years after winning a Cup Series championship, and then Brad took over. The reality is he's only the 4th driver. It's kind of like Pittsburgh Steelers. You're taking over something that's barely, and you're having to replace champions. All 3 drivers before you have won a Cup Series championship and done a lot of work, won a lot of races. Brad is the winningest driver for Penske and NASCAR. It's big shoes to fill. You knew, and everybody and their mother knew that he was going to be in that spot because his dad runs a team. But it's in the last couple of years, Austin Cindric has gotten away, in a sense, from, the nepotism factor and proven that, yeah, I'm a stock car driver. I can do this. He's got the sports car ability still. I'm pretty sure he would have been able, Penske would have run a sports car program. He could have been in that. But in the end, he's become a really good stock car driver. You have him, you have Harrison Burton driving the Wood Brothers 21 car to go and have somebody that actually has talent driving the 21 car, somebody who is raw and has a lot of potential in regards to that. You have Todd Gilliland, which fits the whole front row motorsports mold of giving raw or relatively raw drivers an opportunity in regards to like being in the big time. In the same token, of course, there's the connection, family connection to his dad, who, of course, drove for Front Row Motorsports for many years. There, in regards to the rookie battle in the Cup Series, trying to go and look at this. I had to go... trying to remember. It's those three guys. And did anybody else declare? I know that, So, yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I was just going to say, according to NASCAR, what I'm reading here from a staff report a few days ago, it's just those three. So a Ford will take home that Rookie of the Year trophy, and I think that's something that you had mentioned offline prior to the show. To me, just sizing these three up, you have Cindric and Harrison Burton, I think, is a super interesting dynamic. They've raced alongside of each other for 2-3 years now in Xfinity. And now they're corporate teammates, so they don't both run for Penske. You have Cindric in the Penske car, but Burton in the 21, that Wood Brothers car that's affiliated and gets much of their equipment from Team Penske. This could be a very interesting battle because these two essentially are and have to act as teammates for a lot of the season. And then ultimately they're going to go and battle it out for a trophy between one of them. Nothing against Todd Gilliland. I do think he has a raw talent, and he very much impressed me last year, especially at the end of the season with some of the runs he had in the trucks. But making that jump from trucks right into Cup is something that I think is extremely daunting. And quite frankly, the way the 34 and the 38 at Front Row have run consistently over the past few years, I know everybody loved how McDowell really outperformed the equipment he was in the first few races of last season. But, if you want to come in on a realistic level, the equipment that Gilliland is going to be competing in is not going to compete with the 2 or the 21 that Cindric and Burton respectively will be driving. So I definitely expect it's going to be Cindric or Burton. I have to say, just based off of the past few seasons, I'm thinking it's Cindric as an early favorite for sure. Whether or not that develops, time will only tell.
Yeah, I think the safe bet is Gumby, because I think he's going to win a road course race and might win two. You mentioned it earlier, guys both mentioned it. If there's somebody who could be a rookie and actually be a factor, I mean, there is precedence. There's Tony in 99 coming into the sport, not really having a whole lot of, experience or real success in a stock car, and then jumping into the Cup Series, won 3 races, finished 4th in the points. Jimmy Johnson won 3 races, finished 5th in points in 2002. Denny Hamlin won 2 races and finished 3rd in points in a playoff chase format in 2006. And of course, you look at all of them and they have 40 plus wins, all of them. Do I think that Austin Cindric can be that kind of driver? I'm not so sure about that, but the potential is there because of the way the schedule lays out and the notion of his road racing ability, which has never been in question. this sport, the way it's laying out, could end up, and the way this car is, could really lead to an Austin Cindric kind of running away with this Rookie of the Year. But it's not even about the Rookie of the Year. It could be bigger. He could have been a 2-time Xfinity Series champion. He was 2 turns away from being a 2-time Xfinity Series champion, like Martin Truex, like Dale Earnhardt Jr., like many others over time, like Richard.
You're forgetting Richard. You just said him.
Yeah, I said it. I had to say it. I didn't want to. I mean, Josh, I can't. There's any chance I get to say Richard, I have to say Richard. But I was kind of surprised that the 47 had no speed tonight, but we'll see. He's one of the most aggressive drivers in the draft, so we will see what he does in the duels.
If there's a will, there's a way for Ricky Stenhouse at Daytona.
There is, and Talladega too. And his dad will figure out a way to get to victory lane, even if he has to go through a fence and get escorted by the fine cops of whatever establishment that they are at. But Cindric, I think, is the definite favorite. Todd Gilliland, more than Anthony Alfredo, I think is more capable to get into a cup car and be able to do something. The Front Row Motorsports team, they are what they are. There's been some crew chief and movement. Blake Harris, who's Caitlin Vincey's husband, will be the crew chief of the 34 car. I mean, I like looking at Caitlin Vincey. She's sexy. She's a MILF. And Blake Harris is somebody who has been a loyal soldier for Martin Truex Jr. going back to the Furniture Row days. So there's intrigue in that. Seth Barber stays at the 38. He's a good, solid crew chief. I think that might be a better fit. Kind of like what John Hunter had there, but he wrecked a lot. But then we saw what he did last year once he went back to the Truck Series, and he had somebody that believed in him at Kyle Busch Motorsports and Kyle. And then he had that whole situation. I'm forgetting crew chief off the top of my head, coming back to the Truck Series and what they had there. The reality is Todd Gilliland, he's up against it. Probably not going to really contend or do anything. Keeping it clean, keeping it simple, super speedways, short tracks, where Todd Gilliland has always proven that he's able to do work. I think he'll be able to do something. Harrison Burton's the intriguing one. Can Harrison Burton live up to the potential that, Joe Gibbs and them thought he had, but then they didn't have the spot for him? And in turn, because of sponsorship, kind of continuity and things, the Wood brothers, Virginia, the whole Virginia connection, trying to go and take an opportunity to get somebody who has the potential to be big, but it's a low risk, high reward kind of situation, which is similar to the whole Ryan Blaney deal. I think Harrison Burton's very safe, which is good for the Wood brothers in regards to building themselves towards whoever they're going to have next. He's a very, very PC, very trained. His dad, of course, is going to be running the be a part of the drivers council, the new drivers council. His uncle is one of the greatest people that's ever lived in the history of society, in Ward Burton. And I think Harrison Burton, there's a lot of potential there, but Toyota quit on him. And usually when Toyota quits on people or they let him go, it goes wrong. So I feel like Harrison Burton could do something. Do I think it's going to be this year? Not sure. But I think long term, I wish Ryan Blaney was in the 21 car, but of course sponsorships and money and everything has him in 12. Harrison Burton has a chance to kind of be, like the old school 21, whether it was the late Neil Bonnet, whether it was Morgan Shepherd. You could go and run there and make something and run there for a while. And you have all the Virginia connections, you have the family connections, and build something there. But we will see. and we'll see what happens this season in regards to the Cup Series. Want to transition over. I think I meant to transition over to that a while ago, but it is me. The Xfinity Series, we have. I mean, just to go and think about this particular race, the Daytona 300. I'm not going to mention the sponsor because it changes every year anyway. 47 drivers for 38 spots. 33 top 33 fastest will be locked in, and the final 5 will be locked in on points. Of course, Ty Gibbs is a big one. He won the ARCA championship. There's 3 drivers, it looks like, declared for Rookie of the Year, and 2 of them drive for RCR. There's been shuffling at junior motorsports. There's some teams that are limiting the amount of cars they're going to have. I mean, to me personally, this series is, I think, Josh Berry versus Ty Gibbs. I think that's where we start this in regards to who's going to compete for this championship. I mean, I'm a Sheldon Creed guy too. I'm a Josh Berry mark. I'll be a Josh Berry mark, period, because he's come from nothing to get to the spot, and he's a junior guy and the whole bit. So I want to see him do well, and he did well in his limited starts in a Cup car. He did well in his limited starts in a truck. So I'll be a mark for him. And if he beats Ty Gibbs, it'll make me happy, because Ty Gibbs needs to be humbled in the worst way. The point is, Josh Berry and Ty Gibbs, I think that's the overall thing. You have the notion of some of these other guys, Gagson, you have the JR Motorsports team, Allgaier's been there forever, and he's become like the Elliott Sadler. Sam Mayer, who tried to hit everything but the lottery, but he won't have any problems with money. You have our Motorsports there that they expanded. I think Sheldon Creed, fan of Sheldon Creed, he's like Robbie Gordon 2.0. There's a lot of intrigue there. Him and Austin Hill at RCR are going to be factors in this situation, in this playoff. Of course, Colleague has the defending series champion and Daniel Hemrick. They have AJ Allmendinger, who's one of the best drivers the whole year, and Landon Castle, who's in the best ride he's had in a long time, as your 3 full-time drivers. So Colleague's going to be up there. There aren't really many Fords that'll be out there, so that kind of sucks for me as a Ford guy. Myatt Snyder moves over to Jordan Anderson Racing. Jesse Iwuji will be, with help from Emmett Smith, be running a full-time season with Chevy and Hendrick help, Hendrick engines and Chevy support. And I'm just going through some of the teams. You have Alpha Prime, which will have Raja Karuth running limited races. The 45 will have a varying array of drivers, including Nazareth, Pennsylvania's own Sage Karam, Kaz Gralla, Howie DiSavino out of the ARCA East. Then, Ty Gibbs, they announced that he's going to be running the full season. That's no shock. Josh Williams will be running the flagship 78 for BJ McLeod. DGM's having a little bit of shuffling. Stephen Parsons will be part of BJ McLeod's team full time. Riley Herbst will be wasting a ride, as he's done his whole entire life. But Josh, let's get into it. I mean, we haven't had practice. We don't know what the heck the Xfinity cars are going to do here at Daytona. It is a wide open race. You'll lock yourself into the playoffs here if you win at Daytona. Tyler Reddick did it in a photo finish and ended up winning the championship. Other guys have won and been able to go and advance themselves pretty far, like Gagson and whatever. So are we going to see a junior motorsports benefit? Can Josh Berry go out there, win at Daytona, following his buddy and car owner Dale Earnhardt Jr. and set himself up for a championship? or is Ty Gibbs going to be aggressive and go and do what he has to do and probably run over somebody because that's part of his habit? Or maybe it's somebody else. What are you thinking in regards to the Xfinity Series here for 2022?
Well, I mean, you're right. We haven't seen any practice or anything like that to really get an idea of who might be a contender at this race. But I mean, I'm going to go off of history here. And I mean, you look at the last couple of years of Xfinity Series super speedway racing and look at colleague racing. They figured out a formula to stay up front, be in contention for the win. Obviously, they have committed to playing the team game where they all stick together and run up front for the most part, and it's really them versus the field, and other drivers, other teams try to figure out a way to break up the colleague cars and either make them go against each other or try to just get them behind in the field. So I mean, I look at colleague first. They have an ability for whatever reason that not only can they team race, but they're also fast at doing it. And any one of them, gets up to the last lap, could end up being the winner in this race. I mean, Daniel Hemrick, Xfinity Series champion, going to be debuting with colleague, and he's going to have the team racing aspect, of course, with Landon in the number 10, and then AJ Allmendinger coming back to be in the 16. So, I mean, right out of the gate, I mean, those three cars, you can honestly pick any one of them. But then also with Junior Motorsports, I mean, you talk about could it be a Junior Motorsports benefit? And to be honest, I would like to see the Junior Motorsports cars also adopt that team racing aspect. They kind of did it in Daytona last year and maybe a little bit at Talladega last year as well. But I mean, they didn't do it as effectively as colleague. And so I would like to see that team in specific be able to try that out. I mean, you go back to the old days, the early 2000s, Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, Dale Jr., Michael Waltrip rode together. I mean, later it was Junior and Tony Stewart, but I mean, those days it was the 15 and the 8 that they always drafted together at the super speedways. Truex and Junior in the Busch Series for Chance 2. So there's history with Earnhardt's teams being able to kind of team race together in these restrictor plate races. And so I'd like to see that come out with the 1, the 7, the 8, and the 9, be able to figure that out, because if they can do something, then maybe it might be a little bit more interesting, trying to see who can out of these teams who can draft together and race for the win. So I look at that aspect. You bring up Ty Gibbs. I mean, he also has teammates as well in the 18 with Drew Dollar racing in this race, and Brandon Jones. So there's another aspect there with that team racing mentality. But I mean, I feel like those cars, they may be a little bit more individualist, I guess, and try to race for themselves, especially Ty Gibbs, young driver, very aggressive, doesn't have as much experience on these super speedways as some of the other drivers, and now going to be going full time to compete for the championship. Could benefit any of these guys, especially if they go out and win this first race. So I mean, those are really the players I feel like in this race. Of course, you got Sheldon Creed going up to the Xfinity Series racing with RCR. That's another guy who's been pretty good at super speedway racing in the Truck Series. So he could be somebody to be up there in the front. I mean, some of the other back, drivers who, normally aren't up there at super speedways, or, well, normally not up there in the regular races, but, super speedways, they have a chance. I mean, Brett Moffitt, I think, could be somebody that is a threat at these races. And I mean, we've seen like these small teams surprise and come up to the front, especially with Daytona and Talladega, give you a chance to ride in the pack, and then, you can draft up to the front. I mean, Brandon Brown, of course, last win being tainted, of course, but he's always been really good at, restrictor plate racing. So I would look at him potentially as somebody who could be up there at the end of this race. So a lot of good threats here, but I mean, mainly I'm just really interested in the Junior Motorsports and colleague. If each of the drivers from these teams is going to work together and race against each other, and I mean, it's going to be annoying for, I guess, a lot of fans if both of the teams figure it out, because when teams kind of tend to collaborate with each other, kind of kind of takes away from the racing aspect, I guess, where everybody's fighting for position. But if they manage to stick together all the way up into the end, it'll be interesting once it comes to the last lap, which of these teammates is going to go out and try something to go for the win here in this race, which, of course, is a huge win, especially Xfinity Series. And, of course, a win would lock yourself into the playoffs for the Xfinity Series championship this year.
Yeah, it's early days, and it'll be the same thing for the Truck Series. Joe, I don't know what you've done in regards to Xfinity coverage. It's kind of still been in limbo, which is what the Xfinity Truck Series are coming up to this race weekend, which has been the case for a while. To me, I think it's Barry and Gibbs. The RCR aspect is there. You have veterans and Allgaier and others. AJ Allmendinger and Allgaier are those two guys that have a lot of experience that have won races. But what are you looking for this year in regards to the Xfinity Series? There isn't really a Ford presence, so it'll be either a Toyota or a Chevy, more than likely, that wins. Can Daniel Hemrick repeat here? Can Daniel Hemrick actually go out and win multiple races? He finally got over the hump. He went and moved Cindric, won that championship, got over a hump that's been existing for many years. People judging him on his inability to win and close the deal. Well, he closed the deal in the big spot last November and got that championship. And now at Colleague Racing, he's put himself in a spot being in the flagship 11 where a good year could possibly net him an opportunity to go and make good in the Cup Series after he kind of got ran out the door after winning Rookie of the Year, no less, with RCR. What are you looking at in regards to the 2022 Xfinity Series season?
Yeah, so, similar to Cup, I think this year in Cup, there's a lot of questions revolving around the series because of the car. To me, the 2022 Xfinity Series has a lot of questions revolving around it because of a lot of the faces, whether it's faces in new places, maybe drivers who have been part-time but have never run full-time, like a Ty Gibbs or a Josh Berry, who are now really stepping into it. This is going to be a very interesting year for Xfinity Series racing. And in the fact, too, by the way, we've lost a lot of those front-running drivers that we've seen in past years in Xfinity, like Justin Haley, like Austin Cindric and Chase Briscoe we talked about a few minutes ago. So for me, this is a question mark in terms of drivers. Hemrick, you want to talk about Hemrick? I believe in him. I believe that there's potential. I still, I have my hesitations about him, as I think I have probably for the last 2 or 3 years now, just because he has been in top tier equipment. Look, I love that, he finally got over that hump. He broke through, he won that race. And for him, because of his consistency, it led to a championship. That's even better. But really, it's one win in how many races? And one win last year in a top tier car. That 18 car, whether it's in Cup or Xfinity, is a winning car. No matter who is behind it, it should be a winning car. And winning only one race, winning a race is hard, and I don't want to take away from that. But winning only one race in a team that should be winning multiple. Come on, Ty Gibbs only ran half the season. And how many wins did he walk away with? 3, 4 wins? I worry. 4. Okay, so even more to it. I really do worry if he does not do well this year. If he doesn't win a race, I'll go with just a single race. If he does not win a race, I think it's over for him. He has been going for a long time, and his talent is undeniable. Anybody who's been watching him since his days with Brad Keselowski racing in trucks knows it. The problem is he can't close. And if he continues to not be able to close, that's the biggest part of the race, is closing the deal, sealing it out with a win that ultimately leads to more wins, that ultimately leads to championships. I don't want to say necessarily that he got lucky in winning his championship. I think luck had a hand in it, but one win to secure the championship in a last lap pass, for me, it's not enough to convince me. He needs to go out this year. This is the year. He needs to convince me, and he needs to convince everybody that, yes, he can win multiple races. Yes, he can contend for a championship in a fashion that follows the more traditional suit. Because one championship is great. Any championship is great. But when you do it in such a style that he did last year, doesn't always equate to longevity in the sport. And he's already been there for a while. His longevity is dying. He needs to refresh it. He needs to recharge it. Kind of shifting off of that to something you had mentioned, Ty Gibbs versus Josh Berry. To me, this is so fascinating to me. You have Josh Berry, who has come from very little and has worked his way through the ranks at a relatively slower rate. And a little bit older too to come into the Xfinity series. He's not really a young gun. He's a young guy, but he's got a lot younger competing against him. And finally, after all these years in 2020, he gets his big break. He gets to drive a few races for Junior Motorsports in the first half of the season, wins at Martinsville, and then I don't want to say it's luck, but out of luck for his situation, gets to fill in a vacated seat while Michael Annett cannot drive, and puts together a great performance at Las Vegas, wins again, and so the story lives. Here we are. On the other hand, we have Ty Gibbs, who really until last year, I'll admit, he wasn't even on my radar. He's worked through the ranks at a little bit faster pace. Much younger. I mean, I'm only 22 and he makes me feel old. And, he is, again, only drove about half the season last year. 4 wins. I mean, my God, dude, slow down. I'm a little worried. But really, all jokes aside, again, here we are. These guys are 2 totally different people, right? One who really, worked his way into racing. One was almost grandfathered into racing. It was like his destiny. Ty Gibbs, you're the grandson of an NFL Hall of Fame football coach and a NASCAR Hall of Fame car owner. I mean, come on. It's your destiny to be in sports in some capacity. And so this is so totally fascinating because I don't know if there have ever been such polar opposite drivers, at least in recent years, where I really truly believe that they're both going to do very well for themselves. I think at least one of them will make the Final 4. If I'm basing it on last year's performance alone, I have to favor Ty Gibbs. Ty proved that he can drive on any style of racetrack against the best and beat them. With Berry, I think, again, it was a little bit slower to get up to speed, had that early win, and then a lot of strong performances in the one car. So, for me, it's really hit or miss. I think it's basically going to come down to who just has less luck, maybe gets caught up in that wreck, the big one, or is in one too many precarious situations. I could really go either way. I'm going to favor Gibbs, I think, just because he the talent's just so raw because he hasn't been driving for so long, whereas Berry has. The talent is so raw, and typically that raw talent for a driver who is so young, where the experience isn't there, not only makes them dangerous now because of their talent, but once they are experienced, I mean, Kyle Busch potential. And I'm not kidding. Kyle Busch came in the sport the same way, had that raw talent, and over the years built the experience. And we are here today where he's a 2-time champion, over 200 wins now between the 3 touring divisions, the national touring divisions. I mean, it's no joke when I say Ty Gibbs may be at the start of that style of journey. But you want to talk short term, you want to talk about the right here and now. I still am going to favor Ty Gibbs over Berry. However, I think it's just going to be a fascinating battle with a lot of twists and turns between those two. And just to go on to this weekend, kind of bouncing off of some things Josh said for Daytona, I think he hit the nail right on the head. It's going to be between Junior Motorsports and Colleague Racing. Colleague Racing has this incredible, undeniable culture that it has affected every single one of the drivers that have ever raced for the team. And it's really insane to see how it has changed some drivers. I mean, look, Allmendinger, he's opened up about it, how at Team Penske, at JTG when he was driving for the 47 a few years. There was never this strong and this positive of a team environment, a team culture, and it has revived him. I mean, he was in the broadcast booth for IMSA a few years ago. We never thought he had a chance in hell to come back to NASCAR. Last year, he almost won the Xfinity Series championship. Had, a few things happened, and truthfully, had he had a better car at Phoenix, things could be very different. So it's undeniable that Kaulig will some way find their way to the front at Daytona and Talladega. It's just inevitable at this point. Junior Motorsports is not quite there. However, they have been working together better on those restrictor plate tracks. Obviously, as Josh said, the owner, Dale Jr., he knows the importance of that because he was a part of that in the early 2000s in the Cup side. So, that for Daytona is a very interesting battle for me. But I'm also going to throw in a few statistics there. Kaulig Racing, if you want to look at Daytona International Speedway, has won the last 3 summer races, but does not have a win in the opening race of the year. On the flip side, Junior Motorsports has not won a summer race at Daytona. I don't think ever, if I'm reading this chart correctly. Sorry. That goes back to 2014 when Kane won the summer race. But they have a lot of the 300-miler wins. Noah Gragson in 2020 took a win. Michael Annett the year before won. The year before that was that amazing finish you had mentioned between Elliott Sadler and Reddick, with Reddick coming on top. A few years before that, Chase Elliott in another photo finish. Regan Smith in 2014. So, I mean, this has been almost a decades-long thing where Junior Motorsports has, maybe every other year on average, been winning the spring race at Daytona. So, if you want to talk on average, it's been every other year. Well, it's the other year now because Cindric won last year. So, real interesting statistically as well, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, and that's another aspect of it. The 300 at Daytona seems to be more random than even the summer race. I mean, when it comes to the winners, I mean, Annette somehow or another won a race there. Gagson won there. What's it called? Tyler Reddick got the photo finish. So there's the Earnhardt aspect of it, but then you have the Kaulig aspect. Being able to do things on super speedways, and there, of course, Gibbs is there, so it's something we will see as we get to Saturday, and we'll talk about next week on the GSP as we lead into the start of the Xfinity Series season. Truck Series will have the NextEra Energy 250 this coming Friday. There will be 42 drivers for 36 spots. In regards to how many, I forget how many will get locked in and how many will be on speed. I think it's probably like 30 or 31 on speed and 5 with points. So that'll be an interesting thing. Maybe it's a little bit less. I'm not sure off the top. Anybody wants to go chime in, I'll take that information. But you have Johnny Sauter driving for a new team with Tim Vines as his crew chief, so that'll lead him to some great success, or it'll lead him to the insurrection, one or the other. Matt Jaskell, that's part of the new G2G team. Christian Eckes will be running full season for Thor Sport Racing, defending series champion Ben Rhodes with Rich Lucius. Winner of this race last year. You'll have Colby Howard along with Derek Kraus as teammates at McAnally Hilgeman Racing with I thought they went to Chevy, but it says Toyota's on this entry list, so I guess they screwed that up. Multiple 3-time series champion Matt Crafton with Jeff Hensley now as his crew chief. Jeff Hensley was at our Motorsports, but decided to go and take the opportunity to go and win a Truck Series championship with Matt Crafton. Ty Majeski will be running a full season with Thor Sport Racing with Joe Shear Jr. as his crew chief. Chase Purdy joins Tyler Ankrum as teammates for Hattori Racing. Purdy, who hit everything but the lottery last year, will get a theoretical pseudo upgrade and ride. You have Corey Heim, who's going to be running a lot of the season in the 51 truck for Cowbush Motorsports. Lawless Allen, one of the greatest names in the history of the world. I just love saying it. Lawless Allen. Will be a part of Nice Motorsports with playoff guy and guy who, Carson Hocevar. There's certain people he looks like, and it just interests me. With Phil Gould, they'll be the main team. Dean Thompson and Chris and Lawless Allen will also run for Rookie of the Year. Richard Petty's grandson, Mr. The King's grandson, Thad Moffitt, will be trying to attempt to make the race in the STP Chevy, number 43, for Josh Reaume. Zane Smith moves from GMS to the Front Row Motorsports 38 Ford. You have Tate Fogelman, who will be running for On Point Motorsports, the winner at Talladega last October. Matt DiBurrito goes from running in the 21 Cup Series car to being in the Rackley War Chevy. Jack Wood will be running for Rookie of the Year from GMS, along with Grant Enfinger. So they've reduced the two cars, of course, with their affiliation with Richard Petty in the Cup Series. Danny Bone moves over to Young's Motorsports, at least for this week. Chandler Smith will be back with Cowbush Motorsports in the Safe Light Toyota. You have Tanner Gray there. Haley Dean will be the full season drivers at DGR Racing. Jesse Little will be driving the O2 with Eddie Traconis coming back from suspension. John Hunter Nemechek, who with Eric Phillips was the favorite for a lot of the year, but didn't follow through at Phoenix. And unfortunately for them in that final race, but he's probably a favorite. May not be at Daytona, but I think overall for this season, John Hunter Nemechek, with his talent and ability with Eric Phillips and Kyle Busch Motorsports, I think he's going to be able to accumulate the points and give himself a cushion, get himself to Phoenix again, and close the deal, like his dad did in 1992 for the Busch Series Championship. Outside of that, there's a lot of, drivers, a lot of turnover. Will Hattori Racing be able to compete with two trucks versus always being at one? Can Grant Enfinger get over the hump and get that elusive championship at GMS, which has gotten Johnny Sauter, gotten Sheldon Creed, other people to that threshold, to that pedestal? You have Zane Smith, who's trying to continue in the sport and move to Ford, which will likely probably lead to additional opportunities. You look at Ty Majeski, who's one of the best drivers out there, great driver in the super late models and the late models, took a job as a mechanic at ThorSport and now has made that into a full-time opportunity. Can he come around? There's a lot of high hopes for him when he went to the Nice Motorsports team to take over for Ross Chastain, and that went sideways to the point where he lost his ride. But can he go and recover? Can he go and win here and really show his true potential, a la like Josh Berry, who comes from a similar background? There are intriguing stories here. What will Ben Rhodes do? Christian Eckes, who was a Toyota driver, it kind of got left out, didn't have a full-time ride, and now he comes back into a full-time ride, taking over the team that Enfinger was driving for a couple, 2-3 years. And then they were doing a split ride last year. Josh, I'll go to you first in regards to the truck series. What are you thinking? Is it going to be similar to what most of the year was last year, runaway for John Hunter? Or can somebody else amongst this crew make something happen here in 2022?
Well, I think for this series, it would be easy to say John Hunter Nemechek goes on another tear, goes out and actually wins the championship, unlike last year when it came down to Phoenix and came up short and Ben Rhodes won that. But I do expect John Hunter Nemechek to be up there, be up front in a lot of these races. But I would like to see what somebody like Ben Rhodes, somebody that won the championship last year, can he actually go on a title defense and prove that he can be a truck champion and not just win the final race, but be competitive throughout the year. Because there's been times where he was up there. He won the first 2 races of the year last year, and then kind of went off the map slightly, and then we didn't really hear from him until basically the final round of the truck playoffs, and then wins Phoenix, and he's the champion. We get basically Brad Keselowski, shades of Brad Keselowski's celebration from 2012, and he gets out and goes drunk off just a Bud Light there, which tells you how much alcohol tolerance he has.
Miller Lite.
I can't really.
Let's correct that, please.
Well, that was Miller Lite for Brad, but I think Bud Light was for Ben Rhodes there.
It was a Bud for Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Ben Rhodes is probably drinking like Shirley Temple, and he probably can't handle that either. He seems like the kind of guy that is pretty light in the loafers in regards to drinking. As somebody who's a professional drinker himself, and does use Brad's former sponsor as his part of his lubrication to do the show, Baba Booey style. Fact of the matter is, Ben Rhodes does not know how to handle his liquor. I hope he improves. Whether he has to go and drink red wine, maybe if he can go and repeat, and he'll go and have some box. I mean, it would be
some box wine.
Yeah, exactly. Get a box of wine, pour it on his head. It would be quality. It would fit all the stereotypes of NASCAR if a box of wine was poured on his head. But I don't know. But you can keep going.
Yeah, speaking of wine, I had a friend over for the Super Bowl and brought over some homemade wine. It was like a apple flavored. It was pretty interesting and went down pretty easily. So liked that. It was a very enjoyable drink. But no, for continuing on this talk with the truck series, I mean, the rest of it, it's really hard to tell. You look at some of the drivers in the field that could be competitive. I mean, Christian Eckes, I'd like to see what he can do in this number 98 car. Matt Crafton, always a veteran who's going to be there no matter what. This is basically his series where he can go and thrive in, and as kind of that veteran driver. Only question is can he make the final 4? Which certainly he knows how to be in that situation and be in that top 4, but. I mean, a lot of these guys, it's basically field fillers, young drivers trying to get a sponsorship, part-time sponsorship, and try to get their name in the series. I mean, there are some guys like Carson Hocevar, kind of like, I guess, one of the rising stars in this series, had a couple of good runs, made the playoffs last year. So it would be interesting to see if he can, parlay that into more consistency. Zane Smith, going over to Ford. After a couple years at GMS, now he's basically with the DGR Crosley, Bob Jenkins as the owner. So looking at that, I mean, it could be a interesting combination there. Grant Infinger, of course, continuing to carry the flag for GMS now. He's got Jack Wood in the 24. That could be an interesting one there too. Derek Kraus, he's had flashes here and there, but he hasn't been able to fully put it together. Chandler Smith, he's the other teammate to John Hunter Nemechek, and would like to see if he can maybe have some more of that success from John Hunter rub off onto his team. I mean, he had some success last year in 2021, but of course not quite as good as John Hunter in the 4 car. So maybe KBM can work on getting those teams to be kind of on the same level and higher up into the point standings at the end of the year. There, of course, Haley Diggin driving for DGR Crossley, and she's obviously probably one of the more popular drivers, I guess, just on the outreach and the content that she puts out. Agree with whatever her lifestyle is or whatever, but she's somebody that Ford's putting a lot of money into. They want her to be successful, and I mean, of course, probably will be eligible for that Bush sponsorship that they're doing with female racers. I mean, she's not 21 yet, so obviously they can't sponsor her yet, and she's got Monster behind her, but as she moves up, may have to get some of that Bush sponsorship, and could be a possibly maybe a wild card play for the 4 car later on. Once Harvick retires, that could be a play there. But with Ford and everything. But second season in the car, was she going to be able to do? She more competitive than last year. Obviously there had some runs here and there where maybe she looked like she could be something, but for the most part, it's kind of mid pack. Can she raise her level of performance this season? So this series is really hard to gauge outside of a few teams, outside of a few trucks, like I said, because most part are just field fillers, guys that aren't really going to be able to do anything outside of finishing the race. But it's really interesting to see if somebody can challenge John Hunter Nemechek here in 2022.
That's something we will see. I mean, there's no Norm. Uncle Norm isn't in this race because he can't run minimum speed. God love him. He's a Pennsylvania guy, but I mean, Jennifer Joe can't really either, but it is what it is. She has big tits. In regards to, what are you thinking, Joe, in regards to the truck series? I mean, is it John Hunter or bust this year? I mean, can ThorSport, in their return to Toyota after many years of Toyota, went to Ford, came back, can Matt Crafton come out there and possibly go and get that elusive 4th championship to tie his mentor Ron Hornaday Jr., the legend, the Hall of Famer, or can somebody else come out of the woodwork like a Ty Majeski or Christian Eckes, or who knows, maybe Chandler Smith or Zane Smith joining the Ford camp to go and make this thing interesting here in 2022.
I as much as I would like things for some of those drivers to make things interesting, to me, this series, I talked about having questions in Cup, questions in Xfinity. For me, once you take away these field fillers that Josh made reference to, for me, this is probably the most predictable in some sense of the 3 series. I very much expect that John Hunter's going to continue his dominance, continue to run up front, continue to win plenty of races. As far as closing out the championship, can he do it? Absolutely, he can do it. Last year, just truck wasn't quite where it needed to be, it seemed like. And also, if I remember correctly, had some type of issue throughout the race that really affected him. But I feel like John Hunter, if he's around the sport for a long enough in equipment, no matter what series he's in, would be the equivalent to a KBM equipment in trucks, he'll do very well for himself. And for him, it may not be a matter of if, but when. Definitely expect to see him up front. Definitely win. Championship is the question mark. For me, I no real change from the 4. As far as his teammate, we were talking about Chandler Smith. Smith, I feel like actually they started to get into a groove last season, that 18 team. He's got a very experienced crew chief atop the box, Danny Stockman. There's no question in my mind that Stockman can lead that 18 team and potentially will lead it back into the playoffs. They won 2 of the last 5 races last year. If I'm doing my math right, they won the elimination race at Bristol as well as the finale at Phoenix. They just weren't in championship contention when it came time for Phoenix. So I expect that 18 car or truck rather to become more competitive to that 4. And that probably will be the powerhouse team outside of ThorSport. ThorSport, I mean, you have all reliable Matt Crafton, he's got to be probably the most consistent driver ever. I mean, he's always got the points. He's always in contention. Sure, he doesn't reach his victory lane as much, but man, he's always there. He always manages to do it. Even his bad seasons, he's consistent and he consistently runs top 10. I mean, if you call a consistently top 10 car a bad season. It's a great driver, really. And with Crafton, it's very unique. He is the sole driver, I believe, in any of the 3 series to ever not win a race in the current playoff elimination style format, to actually go on and win the series championship. So of course he can do it, and he doesn't need to win to do it. Christian Eckes, truthfully, is a driver I would have hoped to see more out of to this point. Yes, he got that win last season, but even still, I have some hesitation about him. Ben Rhodes, our defending champion. I mean, he's great, but he's got to be more consistent. He needs to follow the Matt Crafton regimen a little bit more. Winning 3 races on a season, in any season, including Daytona, is great. And then on top of that, winning a championship, even better. But he, like Hemrick last year, I sort of evaluate as an underwhelming champion as far as the performance year round. And he's going to need to improve on that. The other 2 of the, is it 2 or is it 3? Yeah, it's 2 of the Thor Sport cars. The 66 of Majeski. He's somebody that I think it was you, Phil, who said just talent's undeniable. I just don't know if he's really spent enough consistent time to develop a real regiment within any of the NASCAR series. He's jumped kind of between Xfinity and trucks and some other racing. So hoping to see some consistency out of him. I don't know. There's almost something to me that feels a little underwhelming about this lineup this year in the truck series. Like, I almost expect that it's going to be a Toyota. It's going to be either Thor Sport or Kyle Busch Motorsports. And that's kind of it. I think, Enfinger is interesting in his story. He was full-time, went part-time, hopped between some teams. Now he's with GMS. We know GMS is capable, but really outside of Sheldon Creed last year, Zane Smith was not consistent, kind of just willed his way into the Final Four, by a win. And truthfully, that team's performance last year, again, excluding Sheldon Creed, was really pretty disappointing, pretty poor, given how well 2020 went for that organization. So Enfinger, we know he's experienced. We know he can win races. I think really for him, it's going to be, can GMS get over the struggles they had for the most part last year and really get back to where they were in 2020, where you had Creed go 5 wins. Zane Smith, I think, collected 2 or 3 that year as well. DiBenedetto, he's one actually. I have a friend I was seeing today, and we were talking about DiBenedetto. A lot of times we talk about how the car is maybe better than the driver in that you have top tier equipment and the driver maybe isn't there just yet. I think it's probably a little bit more flipped, a little bit more skewed the other way for Matt DiBenedetto. He's got a lot of top tier experience. He's driven around some of the best drivers that there are. Their races, he's shown flashes of greatness in the Cup Series. And now to move down to trucks, are we going to see the same type of thing that John Hunter Neiman? Now, of course, John Hunter's in top tier equipment in this series. DiBenedetto is not. But for me, this is a key year for Matt DiBenedetto, not just for trucks, not for the potential of moving into Xfinity, not for the potential to move back to Cup. This is a key year for him, career. If he does not, I'm going to say, because Rackley War is a younger team and not as well funded as some others, if he does not find some consistency, at least back half of top 10, he's done. He's been around. He's been with good teams. He's been with bad teams. He's gone from the lowest lows to the highest highs, and he's been every which way in between. It's been a fun story. It's been a fun ride. He's been fun to cover, but this, in reality, this is it for him. If he cannot succeed in trucks, I really don't know that what else is there left for him. And, I think the last driver really that I'm going to talk about, Haley Deegan. She's somebody who I know last year was her rookie year, showed some flashes of greatness as well. I would just hope that she can improve. I don't necessarily know that the DGR stable with those Fords are really at the level where they can consistently compete, especially for wins. with the Toyota Tundras that have really dominated the series over the past full of years. Again, KBM, Thor Sport. I don't know that they're there, but she's shown the potential. And to me, so long as she can continue to improve, get a little bit more in the top 5, maybe, for me, then that tells me that she is there. But for her, this is an important year too, because if she does not improve, she may fall over to the wayside. So, Ford puts a lot of hype around her. The fans love her. They put a lot of hype around her. So she needs to live up to that. If she can't, she may be done. Maybe not after this year, but certainly if she can't over the next 2 seasons put anything together, I think that'll be it.
Yeah, I mean, with Haley Deegan, I think between her dad and Monster Energy and Ford, I think her staying power is going to be a lot longer than maybe her talent and ability shows, akin to Miss Hummer and some of the other ladies that have been around. And I think that kind of leads into that last part of what we're going to talk about here tonight in regards to the ARCA situation, where there's multiple ladies that'll be running full time in the main ARCA series. You have ARCA East, ARCA West, all that. But the to me, I mean, John Hunter, to me, I mean, it's easy to go and pick him. The epic collapse at Phoenix notwithstanding, him and Eric Phillips were like a machine. And Eric Phillips has won championships with multiple guys. Stuff happened, and with what is it? What am I forgetting? William Byron, where he was the best driver that year, and things went sideways for him at Homestead, or not at Homestead, but went sideways during the playoff, and he wasn't able to race for it at Homestead, won, and then went to Junior Motorsports, won in the XFinity Championship. But I think John Hunter needs that title. At some point, I think 2311, they're going to expand to a 4-car team. They need to have younger guys. Kurt isn't going to be around very long in regards to driving. I think Kurt wants to be involved in the sport, and that might lead to something since he's a Jordan brand guy. He might be their team manager, like president or something like that. I think that's where things are leading.
He's going to go be an announcer for the Truck Series full time.
Well, as long as he replaces Michael Waltrip, it'd be good for the world. I mean, if he could just replace both Michael Waltrip and Vince Welsh, I would sign for that right now, even though Fox Sports can't seemingly get their sound working, at least on my feed. It was screwed up the whole entire time, but then it's Fox. And one of their overlords is going to be, I think, the Grand Marshal, or go and wave the green flag at the Daytona 500. So it tells you all you need to know. They can't get their sound right after they have months to go and fix it and do whatever. But then they'll go and have one of their overlords show up. One of the people has destroyed our society. Go and wave the green flag, since he's done so much for the world, being a daddy's money piece of shit like Noah Gragson and any number of other people, or like Riley Herbst. But that's beside the point. I think in ARCA, I mean, Ty Gibbs won last year, and Corey Heim finished second with the Venturini team. This year, I think the story in regards to the ARCA series is the women, and the fact that they're going to have multiple women running for the championship this year. I mean, I'm just going through the field here. We have Tony Brettinger, very big on social media, and also Amber Balsine, who was part of. There was a show, I think there's a what do you call a reality show that they had on some channel a few years ago, and she was a part of it with the wives of drivers. I think it was the Austin Dillon's wife and a couple other wives and girlfriends. So now you have 2 women there. I'm trying to think of who else was running full time. I think Daniel Dye is going to be running full time for GMS. You have Mason Diaz running full time. You have Nick Sanchez running Rajah Caruth with Brad Parrott. Look at that. So there's some good drivers here in this race. Gustine has won in the truck series. He'll be in a Venturini Motorsports vehicle. There's some interesting people here in the ARCA series. You have the ARCA East and the ARCA West. The Sammy Smith won the first race of the season yesterday at New Smyrna. And I'm trying to go and get into that. Sammy Smith driving the number 18, beat Taylor Gray, Max Gutierrez, Leyland Honeyman, and Donald Teach, the Canadian Tire, Pinty Series driver, the top 10 or top 5. Mason Diaz, Logan Mascura, Willie Mullins, Stephanie Moyer, and Ed Pompa were your top 10. There were only 5 cars on the lead lap. 16 vehicles showed up. 15 actually started. So there is the ARCA East Series. Sammy Smith was the winner there. The ARCA West starts at Phoenix in a month, and then they'll go to Irwindale, and from there they'll have their season. We'll have some time and gaps going on with that. I mean, I mentioned the women, and Joe, I'll go with you. Tony Brettinger, Amber Balsine. There's other women in the East Series. We talked about Haley Deegan here. Natalie Decker will be attempting, and I think she'll probably make the show in the XFinity series. But I guess there's and of course with the diversity aspect with Rev Racing, we look at it with Bubba, and there's a lot of PR, and he has a special going on Netflix. But in regards to the ARCA series and the level of the field right now, there are some drivers that definitely are people that are going to get, upgraded and be in big rides. But is there pressure, or do you think they're going to have a lot of focus? Is there a possibility that one of these ladies can start closing, akin to the way that women do in the NHRA, and go and really make a name for themselves, not just because of their looks, not just because of whatever their presence on social media, and actually go and win races and put themselves in a position to actually be a factor to race week to week as they go up the ladder. I don't know what your thoughts are on that or any of the other drivers. I mean, personally, I'm excited for Rajah Caruth to get a full season opportunity in the big time.
Yeah, so truthfully, my knowledge of ARCA is it's very small fragments, and they don't quite fit together. It's like one of those awful puzzles that you can never find those missing pieces. But I think just because I don't know too many of these drivers super well, I'm not going to mention anything about who may or may not have some good potential on winning. Obviously, I think everybody knows Corey Heim. So long as they've paid any attention to the truck series. Did wonderful last year. I don't believe he's running full time this year, so not quite championship contender.
No, but, he's running part time there, and he's running a lot of races.
Yeah, running part time both series with KBM. Yeah, so as far as the pressure element that you mentioned, though, there's a lot of it now. I'll be honest, prior to because again, most of my focus is on Cup, and I have limited focuses in Xfinity trucks, so I spend not a whole lot of time looking at ARCA. And I would say that anybody who's now got sponsorship from Busch Light, which associates with one of the greatest drivers right now in Cup, and is just a huge company in general. Yeah, there's pressure, and you know what? There's more pressure now on them because they're in the spotlight. People have their eyes on them now. So there's always that element of pressure. Whether or not they're going to live up to it, I don't know. I don't know these women well enough to really speak to that. But I'm very hopeful that at least one or two, or maybe even more of them, will rise to the occasion. I feel a little bit bad. I think fans are a bit quick to ridicule women in racing, just because of the reputation. We had Danica Patrick, who, I mean, she did okay, she did well in IndyCar and made the transition into NASCAR, and she never won. Couldn't win with top tier equipment in junior motorsports and Xfinity. Couldn't win in top tier equipment in Stewart Haas racing in Cup. It's a bad taste, and I don't want that to happen to Haley Deegan. I don't want that to happen to really any driver. You never hope for it to happen to a driver, and it's just unfortunate because of the whole social dynamic of the greater society and the perception of women in racing. So I really do hope that like I said, at least one, hopefully more than one, can really break that notion. And maybe that's not one of the Busch drivers this year. Maybe that's Haley Deegan in trucks. But it's definitely something that seeing Busch Light's commitment and involvement, I'll tell you, has made me more intrigued. And I know that announcement only came, yesterday, 2 days ago, but I think it's good that a sponsor is willing to put that money and that commitment out there. Because I think, for such a big company who's so involved in racing, that draws more eyes to a series where maybe there weren't so many eyes before. So it's good, not just for those women to have that major backing, but for that series in general. I mean, ARCA is not televised like NASCAR is, even though it is NASCAR, it's owned by NASCAR. It's not televised really super consistently, only a handful of races every year. And the rest of it, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty much behind a paywall. So it'll be interesting for sure. This is a series that I intend on paying more attention to, just in general. And especially to those drivers who are now backed by Busch. So should be a fun show. I hope it's a fun show. Racing should always, in any capacity, be fun, but I'm definitely looking forward to what could come out of this.
Yeah, and I think that's something we have to look at. They had the announcement in regards to supporting, and I appreciate that, Joe, in regards to mentioning that. And I'm going to leave that to you, Josh. We talk about Miss Hummer on here and her exploits, and it's ironic that her former boyfriend has just got another engagement broke off with the immunized, more than likely former quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, is like a 3 or 4 time MVP. I've lost count. But that's beside the point. I mean, people think she can announce, but she can't talk because she's a Hummer. Will we be in a spot where they're going to promote the Tony Brettingers of the sport and, Amber Balsines because they're pretty? Or are we going to be promoting them because they can win? It's been a problem. Even Shauna Robinson had to deal with it. She got in a Cranifis car and was close to wins, and finished really well in the ARCA series. There are other women that have been up there over time. But I think the question is, are we getting to a point where we need a woman to actually win and show that they can do it here? Because the NHRA, I mean, there are plenty of things that tell you that are backwards. But one aspect of where they're not backwards is with women, with people of color, with Hispanic, just with African Americans, with Hispanics, with women, with whatever, you've seen them win. Shirley Muldowney is the greatest example of that in the NHRA, and everybody that's come since then. Fact that Antron Brown, who's one of my favorite drivers, and he's from New Jersey, and now he's a car owner. You have other women, you have people of color, you have like the Aranas, you have the Pentagon family, etc., etc. There's diversity there. But in other forms of motorsports, they're well behind, honestly. Are we at a point for NASCAR and with their ARCA element that are they going to force something here? Or do we have somebody or something that could actually build and maybe have a woman come through like a Kaylee Bryson or somebody else that's in USAC or maybe in some other form of racing to go and take that step and be somebody who can go and eventually come up to the Cup Series or some other series and be out there every week and be a contender to actually win races?
I mean, it's tough to say, really. I mean, I'm kind of in the same position in ARCA as Joe is. I'm not really as familiar with that series as I am with the other series in stock car racing. And I mean, I really only watch Daytona, I guess, if I'm watching ARCA racing. But I mean, it could be to a point where they have to force something. And but I mean, I look at the drivers in the series who are women. I mean, it's not the main ARCA series, but Gracie Trotter, of course, has won in ARCA before, and she has proven she can win, and she might be a driver who can move on up to the main ARCA series and potentially up into possibly trucks and run well in those series. Tony Breidinger's been a name that's been around for a few years now, and she's had various levels of performance in I guess her time in the ARCA series, and she's gotten a couple of top 10s and a couple of top 15 runs, and then there's been other races where she was not on the lead lap or had problems or whatever. And I mean, she, obviously biggest name I guess social media wise or however you want to measure that in the ARCA series as a woman right now. I mean, would like to see more from her, I guess. Same goes for Amber Balkasian, I guess, and what she's able to do. But I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a tough scene. You just have to be able to find the right women that can win races and things. I mean, they're able to see their level of performance this year. We'll see what happens. I mean, not trying to be down or anything, but we need to be able to see them, not only just win, but just be able to run well on a consistent basis and put together top 10s, top 5s. And of course, this series is not a series really where there's a lot of competitive teams. It's not like, oh, you could put anybody in this car and they can consistently run top 5 unless you're a Joe Gibbs Racing affiliated team in this series. So it's going to also have to be measured by how well they can run relative to the performance of the car, and if they have teammates, how well do they run relative to the performance of their teammates. So those are all things that we're gonna have to look out for in this. And I'll pivot to one thing here, and we talked about Raja Karuth, being another name in this series, and I mean, tie it into the sim racing deal, that I talk about as well. I mean, he's someone who's able to leverage his iRacing experience from just like hopping on iRacing and I guess being good at it and really good at it at what he's able to do, and leverage that into an opportunity to drive in the Drive for Diversity program, worked his way up through late models and all those series, and now he's going to be racing in ARCA, has an opportunity to race in Xfinity with Alpha Prime. He's also got marketing behind him. He was on I Am Athlete with on their NASCAR series with Brandon Marshall, of course, and I think he could be something in this series. We would like to see what he's able to do this year in ARCA, and his limited time in Xfinity as well, and what he's able to do. Just I mean, I look at him just from the sim racing perspective, and in just a short amount of time, he's able to leverage the experience on iRacing, just going from that and then actually going out onto the racetrack. I mean, William Byron's experience is kind of similar, but I mean, he also he had I guess a clearer path to that, and I think his history on iRacing goes back further than Raja Caruth, because I think he was only, William Byron was there, I think, for a while on iRacing and on that platform, and I think Raja Caruth is only on there 2 years before he started actually racing in real life. And of course, that only came about because he just went to a race at Richmond, Virginia, at Richmond Raceway. So, I mean, the level of time from not being a fan, or to being just merely a fan, to trying out the sim racing stuff and then going and out actually doing the real thing is pretty impressive to me, and hopefully he actually has success on the racetrack, and can move his way up quickly. I mean, I've raced against him I think once or twice on iRacing in the E-Racer GG series, which is that's Landon Castle and Parker Clearman's league that they do events in. I tried to run in a couple of their events and everything. I've seen some sim racing videos where Caruth was a participant in those races, and I mean, he's seemed pretty aggressive, but he knows what he's doing behind the wheels. So interested just as much as the women aspect, interested in his performance as well.
So just to chime in on something that you, Josh, and Phil had mentioned about potentially NASCAR or organization ARCA, somebody beginning to perhaps try and force somebody through the ranks. I'll be honest, I really hope that doesn't happen. I would rather see somebody. I would rather it take another 5, 6, 7 years for somebody to develop the actual competitive talent that it would need to take to compete at the higher levels and advance through the ranks, rather than them trying to force it. I kind of feel like the whole Danica Patrick thing was forced. Once they knew there was the interest and she came over, I feel like it was kind of forced. Like, you're going to the biggest team or one of the biggest teams at the time, and still to this day, in Xfinity, and then into an open slot alongside Tony Stewart and Ryan Newman at the time, and eventually teammates with a champion. Feel like it was a little
3 champions.
Yeah, 3 champions. How about that? So I have a real hesitance. I don't think it would be healthy if NASCAR forced anybody through, because believe me, if NASCAR forces someone through, the fans know it and they feel it. And it's very evident. I spent a lot of time monitoring social media. Facebook, especially, is where I notice it the most, where NASCAR fans have very strong feelings about their sport. And granted, I think any fan of any sport probably has some pretty significant feelings about some of the things going on within the sport, but and not just to women on that aspect, but to diversity in general. NASCAR fans have a very strong feeling, it seems, one way or the other, about this issue of diversity in women, in having drivers of other races, of other ethnicities. And it's something that the sport does have to overcome. And it's going to have to overcome this notion. If it takes time, then it needs time. But forcing people through, if they are unsuccessful once they are pushed to the next level, will only worsen the issue and the divide between fans. It will reflect poorly on the sport. And it's something that I don't think at this point in time that NASCAR can really afford to have. They need to have somebody, whether it is a woman, whether it's somebody who is African American, if it's somebody Middle Eastern, if anybody, right? It needs to happen naturally. The progression of events in their career needs to come about on talent. That's how it needs to happen, because forcing it is only going to create a larger issue.
Yeah, I mean, that whole aspect of organically developing someone versus the whole WWE, like going and forming it in a story as a storyline, and kind of force feeding it to the public, which may fit for segments of the fandom that exists for NASCAR racing right now. But when you talk about us three, we're way too smart for that. It's something where if a woman can actually compete, it will be good. Certain women weren't allowed that opportunity back in the day. You have women now that have presence on social media, but now, like a Tony Brettinger, she has to show up. She's in the flagship car at Venturini Motorsports. She needs to be running top 5 and no worse than top 10 every week in that car. Amber Balsine, the team that she's with, Marquardt Motorsports, have competed at times and been up front and have won, but they're not out there all the time. They're going to be out there all the time, it seems like, this year. So pressure may be on in regards to that. They may not win at Daytona, but it's something to see whether they'll be able to compete for a full season. Rajah Caruth, I have a lot of high hopes for him. He's a really good driver, and Josh mentioned his exploits in regards to driving against him on the sim. The Max Siegel team trying to win a race basically on their way out, or win a series on the way out after winning, K&N. What was the old K&N series, and advancing Kyle Larson to where he is the Cup Series champion. They were one part of that, but we will see what happens. With that, we will start the close for this episode of the GSP. Joe, where can we find you? What are you working on? What are you looking to do here? And hopefully we can have you back because your insights are very forthcoming and well detailed, and what the fans really need to know in regards to this sport.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and thanks for having me on again. It was actually very funny. The night before you had reached out to me to ask if I wanted to be on the show, Josh had liked one of my tweets about the Clash, I believe, and I was like, damn, it's been a while. I should hop back on, start the season off on a good foot, right on the right foot. So I was intending on reaching out actually, and you beat me to it. So thanks for that. But you can find me over at Fansided's website, Beyond the Flag. I'll be writing some over there, mostly Cup, as I've stated before, but hoping that throughout the year I can dabble a little bit more with Xfinity and trucks than I did last year. You can also follow me on Twitter. I do live stage point updates for the entire season. Unfortunately, I am going to miss one of the duels, and yes, they do issue points during the duels now. So, we'll catch up with those after, but it'll be fun. So at Passero Jr., PASSEROJR on Twitter. You can find me there, and just all the support in the world means a lot. And hopefully it's shared support between my readers and your listeners. It's fun for me to get to come out and talk about the sport. Truthfully, part of my love of hopping onto the show, I don't have a lot of friends in racing. I don't get to talk about it that often. My dad's sort of my best friend, and we get to talk about it some, but I don't get the opportunity to share what I know and what I love with a lot of people. So it really, really, to me, is amazing just to know that there are other people out there who do support me, that I can also support on their adventure through, what is this craziness that is racing, so I'm happy to come back on whenever. I have Wednesdays off of my day job now, so it's great. I definitely hope that I'll be back on, and I'll keep listening for sure.
Well, since you said that, I guess we can book you somewhat regularly. If there is an IndyCar or Formula One, if it's a NASCAR specific weekend, then I guess you should start keeping your Wednesday evenings open, because we'll have you on for sure. You do great work. Your writing is top notch, and the knowledge and the passion is there. It reminds me of me in a lot of ways, going back to my days when I was more full-time writer. Then I realized I'd rather just talk, and it's easier for me to talk than it is for me to put it down on a Word document or whatever, Google, whatever document. So I appreciate you, Joe. Thank you so much. And obviously follow at Passero Jr. Follow him on Twitter and follow his work on Fansided because dude knows his stuff. And there's a whole lot more to come from this man. He's our NASCAR insider. He is our Bob Pockrass. And hopefully you take that as a compliment because Bob Pockrass is never going to be on our show. So
I very much take that as a compliment. Thank you.
And I know that I'm pretty sure if you were given the credential and the hard card, you'd probably live in the media center the way that Bob Pockrass does. I have firsthand experience about seeing that at Pocono multiple times. So I know Bob Pockrass is great, and I feel like you're there. You're the next gen. You're the Gen 7 guy in regards to that. I don't know. Hopefully it's not Fox Sports. Maybe it's helping Dustin Long at NBC or somebody else to go and get to that spot. Josh, we didn't get to mention the iRacing Daytona 500. I think we're going to have to do a 100 and a half /101 episode to go and kind of go over the other stuff that we didn't mention here on this episode, since it was very NASCAR centric, but considering what we called this episode, it went that way. So where can we follow you on social media to see your streams for iRacing? Where can we follow you to go and get your takes on motorsports in general? And I guess the last question is, are you going down to the track here the next few days since you're out there to see some of the racing?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll start off with the last part there. I mean, I'd like to, but don't know if I'll be able to. I mean, Sunday's already pretty booked, I think, my own schedule. But I mean, the race itself already sold out, which I find surprising, and I'm slightly skeptical of that. Sure, there might be true, end up being true, but I feel like there's probably going to be a handful of empty seats. And everything, but I mean, I ideally would like to go, but probably take a little bit more planning, and would like to probably take some family and friends next time. As last time I went on my own, well, that's fun and everything. I know there's other people in my life that want to be able to attend as well, and go to that race and other events like that. But for me, I will touch on the iRacing Daytona 500 real quick. I mean, I'm probably going to end up running on Saturday or Sunday. One's the fixed setup event and one's the open setup, and been trying to run some practice races on the sim this week, trying to get a feel for the car, get a feel for the draft and everything, and probably going to end up having to just stay in the back for the first 50 laps or halfway point of the race, just to make sure I have a car that's in piece, because last year got taken out pretty early and ended up spending most of the race at least one lap down and somewhat off the pace there, although still managed to finish 11th, which tells you how iRacing is sometimes. But yeah, you can follow the iRacing streams at Twitch TV/UCLR2. I'll type it out in our chat here, so Joe can go pick that up, and maybe if you have time, you can watch it or whenever. And then, of course, the takes on Twitter at JP Huffine. Of course, all the takes that I'll have this weekend, Daytona 500, the takes on the football, NFL stuff, and other things, topics of interest that I might be interested in. Go look on there, follow, see what I'm interested in, and get an insight to who I am and everything. So follow me there. But it's episode 100. Thanks, Phil, for getting me into this. Back all the way back in April 2020 and everything. I mean, kind of like Joe. Don't really have a whole lot of real life outlets, I guess. To go out and talk about this in this depth. I mean, I have some friends I can talk about F1 now. I have a couple friends at work that we talk about F1, but I mean, we don't really get into even real too much depth about it, just kind of the surface level stuff of Lewis versus Max, that kind of thing. But to talk about it in this type of depth and really get into it and get into the nitty gritty stuff. That's what I like to talk about, all the details and everything, and that's enjoyed being able to have that outlet. So thanks of course for getting me involved in this. So appreciate that.
Well, it started years ago on Mike Sanders' Facebook page for NASCAR, and didn't know that you were a fan of multiple series. So that's a NASCAR centric page, and my fandom of NASCAR. I mean, I love racing, and I'll love racing for the rest of my life. It's been, what is it, 30 years now. This is my 30th year as a fan in some way, shape, or form, and I just turned 37. So the fact of the matter is, I love racing. I love anything that goes fast. It could be a lawnmower. It could be a boat. It doesn't matter. I love things that go fast. And the fact that we connected on that page on Facebook, same way as Joe and I connected on social media with the writing and website that we were working together on. That's what makes this show worthwhile. It's what makes our fandom worthwhile, because it's about meeting the good people. It's about connecting and making this fandom doing it the right way. Not about promoting the negative, promoting the bad, promoting the good, and promoting the fact that we all have this passion and this love for this sport. And it's the biggest race of the year for NASCAR. I mean, for all three series. It's exciting. I mean, whatever the series may be, we don't know what this series and what these championships will present. We have many months to go. It'll be November, and we'll get there. I mean, the playoffs start in August. I mean, there's many months before we figure out everything. But we're all together. We're fans. We're friends. It's a positive thing. And I mean, Josh, thank you for backing me up, for covering me. I've had many bad nights on this deal, over 100 episodes, and you've covered my ass. I feel bad for you, since your GM sucks ass for your football team, but you actually have a coach, at least. So he's a Super Bowl winning head coach. Though the guy you won the Super Bowl with was traded away from your team, but that's beside the point. But whatever, he has a statue in Philadelphia. But it started on the Fill in the Blank podcast. This podcast came around because of it. It took me many years to get this thing off the ground. I should have done it a long time ago, but I think it worked out the way it did because we were supposed to be together and do this. So the fact is, we're together. We got this thing going. It's 100 episodes. We got guys like Joe that come through and help us out. And Joe's an up and comer. He's our insider. It's a good thing. It's what makes the sport what it is, and what makes our show, the Gripster Podcast, so meaningful, because we're able to go and present to whoever wants to listen, and give a little bit of a respite once in a while to think of something that isn't life, the way life presents. You can find me at Philip G. Matthew on Twitter. You can find us at GripstripPod on Twitter. We're on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Podbean, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and TuneIn. We are out basically anywhere you can find a podcast. You can find a Gripstrip Podcast. You can find me at philipgmatthew.com. That's my blog site. My Facebook presence, not so much. But, we're here. We're posting this show 100 episodes in. Probably going to do a half episode like we did a few weeks ago to go and cover the rest of this stuff. Probably live stream the truck race. Invites open to you, Joe, if you're available, if work isn't in the way. But
Friday, unfortunately. And actually, I'm going to miss a lot of action from Daytona. I'm going to miss the first duel. I'm going to miss the trucks, and I'm going to miss, some of trucks at least. I'm going to miss Xfinity, the whole thing. So as much as I would love that invite, because that sounds a lot of fun, at least for this week, it's out of my cards.
It's all good. We'll plan and work accordingly with you, because I figure we're going to go and arrange some things. We know some people, talk to people on the socials, but you're going to be our NASCAR guy for sure. Try to get Phil Spain back on, Clayton Caldwell, who's in Daytona this weekend or this week. My former podcast host and buddy on Talking in Circles. We'll hopefully be able to get him back. So we have plenty of NASCAR coverage for a podcast that definitely isn't NASCAR centric. We have a lot of people that are NASCAR aficionados. So it's a good thing. We have all bases covered here on the Grifter podcast. So with that, enjoy the speed weeks, what is left of speed weeks. Enjoy the Daytona 500. Be safe. Take care of one another. Enjoy the race, not the other bullshit that they're gonna go and post and show before the race. It's about the racing, and hopefully it'll be a good race, whatever happens. But either way, racing season's back on. Daytona, the Rolex 24 and the Chili Bowl kind of open things and people don't really get into it. But now we're in it. Next week's episode is going to be Daytona 500, Redux, all the three major races or four major races at Daytona we'll kind of get into. And then we're going to talk about the IndyCar series in episode 101. So we thank you for listening to Grifter Podcast. For Josh, for Joe, I'm Phil. Take care. God bless and goodbye.